somewhere along the line, we've equated love with acceptance. Yeah. And that's not what love is. Love is not acceptance. If my kid is about to put their hand on the burner of the stove, I want to stop them before they get burned.
And if I got to swat their hand out of the way,
that's right.
Then so be it.
That's love. I'm protecting them from getting hurt. It's not love for me to say, yeah, go ahead, burn your hand off, and then you'll learn your lesson. That's not protection, And so acceptance is not love for me. Love is saying, helping guide people to know what is God's truth. And I think that's really ultimately at the bottom of all of it, is you have God's truth and then you have man's truth.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 Strength and Health Authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Strong by Design podcast. So great to have you. This week's episode, a very special one, as they all are, really. If you're new to the podcast, we are grateful for you finding our show. There's so many great podcasts out there. I listen to about 7 or 8 of them myself on a regular basis, so I know it can almost be overwhelming because there's so much out there. But we have been around now for 5 years, coming into our 6th season, actually, coming up soon here in May. So it's a pretty great time to be podcasting, and we just really love it here at Critical Bench to have meaningful conversations with really inspiring people from all walks of life, experts in their field. And sometimes we do in-house episodes like today, where we just have members of our own team to talk about topics or subjects that are really in the now, things that are more trending, things that we can talk about just as men and women, human beings living our lives and having meaningful discussions that need to be had and need to be shared. Because I think that's what people are looking for, or what they're missing a lot now anymore is more truth and more meaningful stuff that's out there, and good stuff, rather than so much of the flap that is thrown our way.
I hate the flap
of life. If you're a brand new listener of the podcast, go back and listen to hundreds of previous episodes. We have just a plethora of episodes for you to binge on. And I know that's what I like to do when I find a good podcast, is I just go way back and I just start listening kind of from the beginning, or just kind of picking through based on what the subject or the title of each episode is. So I encourage you to go back and do that. If I could ask one thing, and I hopefully will remember to ask again at the end, but think of someone that you can share this episode with that could benefit from what we talk about today. Maybe there's somebody in your life, a friend, a family member, a coworker, somebody that you feel could really grow from this conversation, or maybe it can open up the door for you to have a conversation with this person about this particular topic. So thank you in advance for sharing, because that's how the podcast grows and reaches more people. So, with that being said, our amazing team, our husband, our wife, our videographer and his superstar wife are here today. Jared Haley and his wonderful wife, Cairistiona. Thank you so much for being here. First time on the show, by the way, right?
I know, yes. It's exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
So excited. Now, sometimes when we're doing shows, I'm thinking, is this going to make Cairistiona mad if I say this out loud? And now
I have never gotten mad at you.
I know. I've done really good.
Okay.
I'm saying that's a self-check.
That's cool.
And today you're in the room.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're going to get mad, it'll happen right now.
Live.
That's right.
It's going to happen right here.
If there's something he says that you don't like, you let him know it in real time.
I don't hold back.
I know you don't.
Oh, man.
And what makes you extra special is actually that you listen to our show.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, some of the wives, kind of
Not
checked
so
out. My wife.
I need him to send it to me though, or I
yes,
won't.
otherwise
I
you
won't.
won't. You're
Yeah.
right. You know what though? I make jokes about that. If I send my wife a podcast that says, "Hey, like I think you'd
Can
really
you?
like this," or you should, she will.
Yeah.
She'll listen to it. But yeah, she's not like checking.
No.
She's not checking.
Yeah.
She listens to my voice enough. She's like, "Is there one where you're not in it, like about something I care about? Because then maybe I'll." Yeah. So no, I mean that in a good way, and
Okay.
she would laugh at that.
Got
so
you.
So anyway, I want to get to know, and I want our audience, but me as well. I want to get to know you two a little bit better as a couple, a husband. You guys have a long history together.
We do.
You've known each other since you were teenagers.
When I was in elementary school.
Yes.
Yeah.
So share a little bit with our audience just so they can get familiar with you two, your personalities.
Yeah.
And I mean, you two have been together longer than you've been apart. So talk about that a little bit, if you would. Either of you can start.
Ish.
Yeah, goodness, we were at a charter school that was K through 12th. And my sister actually, like last month, sent me a photo of Jared hanging out with a friend. He was in middle school. And I was right behind them, not in the photo, but in the photo, like the
She's in the background.
frame. Yeah. And there I am, a fifth grader, taller than him. I was a very tall girl.
You are a tall
I
woman.
know.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'8".
Yeah, that
which
means-
is crazy
But
because
if you wear anything with
makes me way
elevated,
taller.
it really makes you tall.
yeah. So needless to say, it was just really funny because she found it in her just random
An old
photos she
printed
had.
photos.
Yes, old printed photo, and I was laughing so hard. And I'm like, little did we know that Jesus was setting us up.
And
Eventually,
you were in 5th and he was in...
middle school. I don't know if you were in 8th grade.
What's the age
Yep.
difference?
Must have been 8.
He was in 8th grade. I was in
Wow.
5th grade.
Yeah, you would have been really robbing the cradle at that point.
Right?
You
He
can't
would
be
have been
dating
a
an
creep.
elementary-
think when
He
I-
would have been a creep.
Pretty sure when I graduated, you were in 7th grade. Like my 12th grade year, you were in 7th grade. Is that right?
No,
was
she would have
eighth.
been held
Eighth.
back.
Yeah.
Oh, so wait, maybe you were in 4th when he was in 8th?
Maybe. I have no idea, guys.
I don't know.
We should probably sit down and figure that
Yeah,
out. No, I'm just kidding.
let's get that together, shall we?
Yeah,
You
I was
two?
still tall. So
I was still tall.
Still
I was
tall.
still short.
So let's fast forward to when you did come to know each other.
oh my gosh.
And when was that exactly?
So after,
Before you go there, though,
Yeah.
we were at a lot of events together.
That's
like,
true.
I would go to his church youth group, and this guy would never talk to me, look at me, or anything. But his best friend would like play tag with me in the church building
Yeah.
because he was flirting. You know what I mean? Like,
I was still
at
afraid of girls at that point.
in high school. He was afraid of girls.
Oh yeah.
But needless to say, like, I went to his house after homecoming to watch Zoolander. He doesn't remember me there. We played in the basement. Like, all these little
I remember
events.
these events. I just don't remember she was there.
Yeah.
Built a house for ants? That's all I remember. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
gosh.
So, like, it's just crazy that I wasn't in his view, and neither was I. Like, I didn't care for him because he never gave me attention.
That's
and I was
right.
young and immature, right? And so it wasn't meant to be then, and that's okay. But it's really cool to say, whoa, we got stuck in a car that was getting flooded by rain, and we had to push the car to a Baskin Robbins and go have ice cream. But we weren't connected, but we were there at the same event. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's really fun. And then he was my brother's friend growing up. They're in the same grade. So that also is probably why we were like at the same things. And I wasn't like the annoying little sister.
Nope.
Nobody ever said I was annoying to my face.
Nope.
So
They
Yeah.
wouldn't dare.
I always say it was
Dare.
good that she
Sassy.
didn't.
I was too sassy.
I was glad she didn't know me in high school because then she never would have dated me.
I wasn't ready for you though. You were way more mature than I was.
So.
So
After I graduated from college,
Yeah.
and you had just graduated high school,
no, I was a senior. Well, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just graduated.
so
senior.
she was working at Target, and I was getting ready because I went to Ireland for. I didn't know how long I was going to be there, but
Yeah.
I was on my way to go work at a church in Ireland, and so I went into Target to get a coat. And Cairistiona happened to be working in the men's department that day, which was the only day.
never worked in the men's department. I had worked there for 3 years from going through high school and stuff, and never was put in the men's department. And they said, we need you in the men's department. Go put it together, make it look nice. And I ran into this guy and his mom.
What were you getting?
A coat.
I was getting a coat.
I needed a coat because I was going to Ireland and it was going to be chilly and rainy and whatnot. And so I remember specifically leaving the Target, and my mom said to me, because she was with me, she's like, now how do you say her name again? And I was like, I have no idea. No clue. I always knew that it was different. But
and when you left, I told my employee, I was like, oh, that guy was kind of cute.
Just kind of cute. She had to get to know me. I'm really cute when you know my personality.
That's right.
Not so much my face.
Oh, that's not true. Stop.
But
He has a great head of hair and a glorious mustache. Right? We've already talked about
That's
that.
right.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, that's kind of where it's. We caught each other's attention. I started MySpace stalking her.
Ooh.
He did.
Which, on her MySpace, it specifically said that she wouldn't date anybody under 6 feet tall.
He did.
And so I looked
That's
at
how
him, and
immature
I was
I was.
like, oh, man. I remember being super disappointed when I read
Because
that.
you're 5'10". Yeah.
But I don't know, we started talking anyway. We started chatting on, like, MSN Instant Messenger.
Oh my goodness.
And playing games while he was in Ireland. It's kind of funny.
And then when I was home in between the 2 years that I ended up being there, and I knew that she played volleyball, and so I invited her to come play volleyball because we played at my church every Monday night, just like pickup game. And so she came and she brought a friend with her, which was like her bailout friend in case I was crazy.
Oh, right.
But I think you sent her home and you hung out with me longer that night. Is that true? I don't remember.
I don't remember. We drove together.
The brother that I graduated high school with was getting married at the end of that week as well.
Yeah.
And so we ended up hanging out almost every day and officially started dating at the wedding.
Yeah, this fool at the wedding. I said, you want to go dance? Which was like family-friendly dancing, like line dancing kind of feel. Like, I don't know what it's called. All those fun songs.
Of course.
But anyways, I said, you want to go dance? And he's like, I can't. I'm a Quaker. And I just like rolled my eyes and walked away from him. I'm like, ew. Like, I love dancing. All right. That's like a no for me. But apparently he was joking because Quakers don't dance. But he was totally joking.
I was totally afraid.
You were just being afraid and thought you'd throw some kind of
joke
humor at her, which she totally didn't. She took seriously.
Well, here's the thing, though, is I'm a terrible dancer, like absolutely horrible.
Sure.
And when we first actually started dancing with each other, like because I joke all the time, I would be dancing and she'd be like, "What? Quit messing around and just dance with me for real." Like getting frustrated and angry, and I'm thinking,
Charlie Brown.
I'm like, babe, this is all I got.
Charlie Brown dances better than him.
This is as good as it gets, So
Yeah.
But
I didn't know people couldn't dance.
there's a video out there on Instagram actually at Mike's party with me and Steve doing some dancing.
Have you seen that?
No, I don't know if I. Which one?
I think Jesse posted it.
Oh, I'll have to go check that out.
It's funny.
It's terrible.
Because Steve and him look exactly like they're dancing the same.
Yeah, and we look like we're dancing for Charlie Brown for sure.
Oh man, yeah. I lost whatever I had in my 20s is long
dead.
Gone.
That's okay.
Because I was never told, like, I was always, even when my wife and I met, we were in our 20s and we would go dancing and have a good time.
Yeah.
And like, it's a shame that, I don't know, maybe I should rekindle some of that because I know she would probably like that.
Absolutely.
I know she would. She always loved dancing and going to clubs and stuff like that growing up. But So you guys have this now pretty long history together. We got about 20 years.
Yeah, I mean we got married in 2009. We started dating a year and a half before that.
Yes. Yep.
So 15
good years of us together.
But you knew of each other prior to that.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Yeah. And fast forward to today, we have 4 beautiful children who are all past their sicknesses. this late fall or
Sorry
late
if we
winter,
cough.
early spring allergen season that's
It's
here
crazy.
in Florida.
Ezra
is
still
ridiculous.
has a bit of a cough.
Yeah.
And Enoch still has his ear. He was saying his ear was hurting yesterday. I'm like, oh my gosh, stop.
Youngest, oldest 11, youngest six,
Seven.
The
Twins are
twins.
7. They'll be 8 in April.
Right.
So almost there, like 3 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's only really about three
So
years
when,
between all
when the
four.
twins were born, we had 4 kids under the age of 3.
Yeah.
All in diapers.
Goodness gracious. And
Well,
you
Ezra,
survived.
we potty trained that fool, and he regressed right after the twins because he hated them so much.
Yeah.
So
He didn't like the twins.
No.
Because that attention was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be tough.
Kids are funny.
Wow.
But
The twins in my family were my older brothers, so I
Yeah.
was the baby. So I never felt like I didn't get attention
Yeah.
because I was the youngest one. So I always felt like I got plenty of it. But yeah, I mean, there was always a part of me that wanted to get more because my brothers always drew more attention automatically because
From
of
people.
the twin
Yeah.
thing.
All
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So I always felt like a third wheel type when I'm sure some of your kids can maybe go through that every once in a while. Or
Yeah. I mean,
emotions.
having 4 kids, though, people like automatically just talk at you.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my gosh, you have 4 kids? And you're like, yeah.
What were you thinking?
They're all yours?
Do you really like kids that much?
You know where they come from? I'm like, yeah, how about we talk about my sex life? I'm like, oh my gosh.
yeah, they do say that.
They do.
They
It's
say,
not a lie. Every time I go out.
Wow, you must have your hands full, or
That's the most infamous one.
yeah. So older people recently, like with inflation stuff, they just come up and say, "How do you do it?
How do you survive?
How do you do it?" And we're like,
What do you mean?
I'm like, "How do you do what?"
Yeah.
And they're asking like, "How do you afford groceries for 6 people?"
That's right.
You know, is what
it's
they're really
so
asking.
sweet
It
because
is.
you can tell like they're struggling and they see us as a big family, and we're like, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
nothing
yeah.
nothing
We-
easy about it.
I usually make a joke and say like, "Oh, we just don't feed them," or something.
He does. He
That's
does.
because that's just how you operate.
That's how
something,
Jared does
something
things.
stupid, you know.
Have you guys obviously no doubt know Jim Gaffigan because I know you saw him not that long ago.
Yeah.
You went with Mike and
Yeah, we
Courtney.
did.
So
And,
funny.
he has that one joke. He has a lot of material
The
over the
drowning?
years. Well, no. I
Oh,
was just
no.
gonna say the one about the number of because he has like 5 kids or
Yeah.
6 maybe. So
Yeah.
he has like
Yeah.
a big number.
Yeah.
And people would look at him. Or he would talk about like when people would ask, "Oh, and you have kids?" He'd be like, "Yeah, you know." And when you have 1 or 2, it's you say 1 or 2, and people are like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Then we got to 4, you know,"
Yeah.
and people are like, "Oh,
Yeah.
What is wrong
well,
with
that's
you?
one way to live your life." You know,
Yeah.
you know, it's like.
You're special.
Yeah, it's like you're but
Yeah.
obviously 4 wasn't the intent with you
Sure.
guys. You got the bonus kid
Yep.
there.
Yeah,
And-
actually, she
Oh
had to
my
convince
gosh.
me to have the 3rd. I was fine with 2.
Yeah, we had 2.
And I was done. I was like, "We're good."
Boy, girl.
Like, we had a boy, we had a girl. Like, what else do you need? And she was like, "I just feel like our family's not complete. I think we need one more."
and I
so-
was already pregnant.
right.
with
So when
a
I agreed
twin.
to it, I was like, "Okay, let's have one more." She was already pregnant, and we always said God must have wanted us to have 4 because He knew that
You
there was no
would've-
way I was going to have another one. So,
It's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy. That's our
great.
story.
That's your story. So we're all caught up. Here,
Yeah.
here
So-
we are.
yeah.
And obviously, the Strong by Design shirt was offered today, but we didn't want to force it upon you.
Are
because
you throwing me under the bus?
No, it would have been. It would have really looked, I
was
think,
classy.
a little bit too much.
Yeah.
With the backdrop and
Sure.
everything, too
Yeah.
over the top.
That's right.
You know.
That's okay.
So now that everyone has been acquainted with you and
Yeah.
they see, obviously you've been here at the office a lot over the last year since Jared started working for us. And we were looking, people listening to us who maybe aren't familiar with us talking about Jared or his history here. When he was hired as to be our videographer, video production specialist
Yeah,
when we were in the
yeah.
process of hiring for 1. And then we ended up really liking 2 people at the end, so we hired both because
Which is the coolest thing ever.
Which is the greatest thing ever because I can't imagine having just Jared or just Steve.
Kind of makes you sad.
It's
it's
a
too
yin
sad
and
to think
yang
about.
kind of situation that we created here because they complement each other so well, and we've all become really close. But so now that we're here, I want to talk a little bit about the meaning of family and the family unit, and what appears to me to be a bit of an attack in our culture today on a traditional family unit. And in a roundabout way, I feel like it's crept up on us slowly here over the last few decades.
Yep.
And I think also you're not aware of things. There might have been feelings from people in society back in the 80s or 90s. When I'm in like college, and you're not a family person at that point, so you're not kind of aware or of those things going on in the culture or whatever. But as you get older, you are kind of a little bit more in tune, I think, and kind of
shocking.
listening a little bit more, and and I think there's a bit of that conservative thing that happens to a lot of people as they get older, as they marry, as they have families. They want to be rooted in something, right? They maybe become a little bit more rooted in tradition or in the way things were type things, and that's what they want for their own kids. But what I'm seeing and I'm feeling is this like overwhelming pressure and this constant messaging that's going out there that's really an attack on what I value as a marriage between men, women, and having a family, and that structure. And I feel like it's getting hit on all sides.
Sure.
Just to kind of talk or start the talk off this way. Are there any things that jump out at either one of you as I bring this up or mention this? I mean,
oh man, we're trying to watch this show on Netflix, and good grief, everything that's new has to incorporate homosexuality.
Yeah.
And it's like, it has to be equal, just as equal as a, heterosexual relationship. And so I'm like, dang it. For me, it kind of ruins it. And I understand why they have it. I understand why they have to do it, why they are doing it. Doesn't mean that I have to accept it and have to, continue in it, and it actually has been heavy on me this week.
Yeah.
And
I hate that it doesn't has
value.
really nothing to do with the story at all. It's unnecessary. I used to think
they add romance. That's their romance. They're adding.
But they didn't add romance. They just added in this fling.
No, it's romance.
It's almost like a box to check off.
It is a box to check
It is
off.
what it seems like. And it's made its way all the way down into cartoon programming, too.
Oh, yes.
And it's not just adult television
Content.
and Netflix and Prime and network. I don't even watch network television anymore.
No.
I read a lot more because honestly, I'm so over the agenda that seems so obvious.
Yeah.
And it's not that. I think we can all have this conversation. We're talking truthfully from our heart how we feel. It's not an attack on people.
No.
It's almost like this badge of honor of proclaiming who we are, and you have to be okay with it or you have to like it.
Yes.
And that's not necessarily true, is it? In life, is that's not how people don't have to like or agree with you. They can still love you, but they can disagree with you and want something different for you.
Yes.
Isn't that true?
Even if you go back 20 years with movies and things like that, they're throwing in sex scenes and things like that you don't need it in order for the movie to work. It's just we're going to add this because we know it's going to attract more people to come watch this movie.
That's exactly
it's my story's not good enough on its own. I have to show nudity in order to get people to actually watch my movie.
But it's considered art, right?
Sure.
And I'm like, well, my art's between me and my husband.
So
there was and I don't want to, you continue, but I have a quick point I want to make on that. You just reminded me of something I saw just a few days ago, but please continue, Jared, because I think
go ahead. That was my point. My point was just like, it's unnecessary. Like, the movie should be good enough on its own that you don't have to just throw in this random scene just to make it more attractive to the world or to culture. But I mean, unfortunately, sex sells, and it always has. So, and they're looking at how can we make more money? Well, hey, let's just throw in this scene real quick. And it just, to me, I don't know, it feels unnecessary.
Yeah, I hear what it seems like superficial plot lines that are like added in at the end after the story is really developed, and it's like, oh, I know what we can do. Let's sprinkle it with a little bit of this and a little bit of that, just so that we're making, we're reaching everybody.
It broadens the spectrum of who we're pulling into the movie.
I saw I forget what it was. I think it was probably a reel on Instagram. And it showed a beautifully dressed, very elegant woman walking down a street, dressed like with one of those really cool like hats, like almost like you'd see at one of the horse racing events.
Like Titanic.
Cool.
Something like that. But beautiful dress. Beautiful. And she was a curvy, but she was fully covered, very attractive, dark hair, but the hat and everything, and just tall in stature, walking. And it just showed like people looking in the crowds, like separating as this woman just walked down the road. And it said, you don't need to be less dressed or underdressed in order to get attention, kind of thing. And I think the whole message there, and I just really liked it because I'm like, yeah, like when I think of like a beautiful woman or a beautiful, or a handsome man, what do I think of? Well, I don't think of somebody that's just nude or somebody that's wearing next to nothing. Oftentimes I think of somebody that's really well dressed and really well, like, I just feel like it feels like it's gotten lost in this. It seems like we're so sexually dominant right now, and that's the driver of everything. And it's being jammed down everyone's throats. And it's the what seems like it's the ends of the spectrum that are garnering a lot of this attention, or clamoring for attention, or shouting the loudest, and looking to be heard and accepted by all. And I mean, everybody, I guess, should be heard or have a voice, or be seen or acknowledged, I guess. But to the degree that it's gotten to, it almost just seems like it's just gotten so. I always think of our culture, in the United States here. I feel like, listen, I love our country. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I love where we live here in Florida. But I feel like it's a pendulum that swings, right? And I feel sometimes when the pendulum swings maybe too far one way, then we allow it to then swing way too far the other way, almost like an overcorrection. When you're going down the road and you swerve to maybe to miss something, but what happens is you swerve a little bit too much, and then you overcorrect and you swerve too much to get back. And so I feel like...
So right now we're all spinning like this?
That's what I feel like. I feel like that's what's going on right now. And I feel like it's really confusing for children. And I feel, and certainly just for younger people in general. I feel like there's a lot of confusion.
Yeah, think of when you were a kid. You didn't know who you were.
That's right.
You didn't know what you were doing was wrong when you were doing it, and it was wrong. You know what I'm saying? And so now today, when things actually become the norm, this normalcy around sexualization, whatever you are, it's even more confusing. But then, like, that pride, right? The pride is what bothers me too. I'm like, whoa, like, God tells us, like, to not be prideful. And so I'm like, for me, when people are striking up, like, having big celebrations of pride, I'm like, holy S, guys, this is not okay. Like, if you are a Christian, you should not be celebrating that.
No.
Should not be celebrating pride. It's legit the name. Like,
No, you're
whoa.
right.
I'm like, pride is the root of all evil, and humility is the root of righteousness, of being right with God. And so I'm like, if we all humbled ourselves, this world would be a whole lot better. And then now we're having celebrations all the time, a whole month of pride.
And people, and there's blowback from this too. Yeah. I mean, just recently, look at some of the stuff that's happened in NHL with the hockey, where NHL was basically mandating that all their players, all their athletes, were to wear these LGBTQ pride or whatever, or represent it in some way. And I don't know all the details of it. I don't know if it was on their jersey or an emblem attached to something. Yeah. And some people, like one guy was like, no. And then some other people, and they have a right too. They do. Have a right to say no. I don't believe in that. Yeah. And that doesn't make me comfortable. So I say no to that. I agreed to play hockey, and you agreed to pay me money for playing hockey. I did not agree to some of these other agendas that are kind of being slid in, to satisfy. Like 10 years ago, this was not even a thing. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it's a thing that's being mandated, and I don't see in the land of equality and tolerance that there's a lack of tolerance right now for people who disagree with how things have gone. Yeah, and it's disturbing it's frightening as a guy who's. I have an 11-year-old and an almost 8-year-old. So we have kids the same exact age. And, I just think, what's 10 years more of this look like? And what's this going to do to my kids from elementary through high school? This is their most formative years. I feel like my wife and I are just constantly I know this is confusing, or like a lot of deflection and a lot of explanation of things, which I guess is normal for parents with young kids, right? We're going to have to explain things to them and sit down and talk with them, and that's our job. But I feel like they're adding fuel to an already confused fire.
Right, but we didn't have to have these serious conversations when we were young.
No.
Things didn't come up until later in life when it comes to sexuality.
Sexuality in elementary school, I'm sorry. And I'm thankful again where we live in Florida that they've all but shut that stuff down. Yeah. You do not, that's for parents. If the parents want to talk to their children about that stuff, that's up to them. Yep. That's their family choice. Yep. But anything below 6th grade, I think, is off limits for schooling to even touch on that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, we were at a community pool party, and I don't even remember what I was doing. I was walking around the pool where all the kids were, because they were just in the shallow end, just kind of hanging out. And these are all elementary school kids. I mean, it's I think the oldest one was in 5th grade, maybe. Yeah,
5th grade. I would say 3rd grade to 5th graders.
And I just overhear their conversation, and then one girl's like, "Oh yeah, I haven't decided what I am yet. I haven't decided if I want to be a boy or a girl, or if I'm bi, or if I'm whatever I am. I'm still working that out." And I'm like, why are you even? Number one, how do you know these things? Number two, why are you thinking about those things? And it's always you can't rent a car until you're 25. And the reason for that is because
you can't drink until you're 21. Right? You can't go into the military until you're 18.
Right. Yeah. But these car rental companies, the reason that they don't rent to you is because your brain isn't yet fully developed.
That's right.
And so they're like, we want to. We've looked at the statistics, and it's better if we wait until you're 25 to allow you to rent a car. And so we get that. We're like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, my brain's not full. Their brains aren't developed. They shouldn't have a car on the road. But then they're like, your brain's not fully developed, but that's cool. You go ahead and decide if you want to be a boy or a girl, depending on how you feel that day.
You're 6, you're 7. Yeah, you don't even know if you like pizza with pepperoni on it, or macaroni.
You don't even know
cheese.
If you gave them that choice, they probably would just say, "I want candy."
Yeah,
I'm just let's let them make every decision on their own. They're all gonna die because if your kids are like our kids, they're walking in the road without looking both directions
every time.
If you give them a choice of what to eat, they're gonna always pick sugar. All of these things that we know are not good for them, and then they say, "Well." Love, somewhere along the line, we've we've equated love with acceptance. And that's not what love is. Love is not acceptance. If my kid is about to put their hand on the burner of the stove, I want to stop them before they get burned.
And if I got to swat their hand out of the way,
that's right.
Then so be it.
That's love. I'm protecting them from getting hurt. It's not love for me to say, yeah, go ahead, burn your hand off, and then you'll learn your lesson. That's not protection, And so acceptance is not love for me. Love is saying, helping guide people to know what is God's truth. And I think that's really ultimately at the bottom of all of it, is you have God's truth and then you have man's truth. And I mean, that's what Romans 12 is all about, right? Is transform my mind and renew my mind. God, the world and the culture has made me think a certain way. And the only way for me to think the way that God created it and God designed it is for my mind to be transformed and renewed to think the way that God thinks. Because we're in the world. And so you can't possibly understand the family value system without hearing.
I mean, on the wall here at work, you guys have your core values in every room, right? And so that has me thinking, like, what are our core values in Scripture? Well, Deuteronomy chapter 6 and Deuteronomy, I hate that word. Deuteronomy 11, they both say the same thing. They say, put these things, my core values, on your doors, on your door frames, like on your gates. Talk with them to your children as you're walking, as you're going.
Bind them to your
in the morning, talk about it. In the evening, talk about it. Yes, he says put it on your foreheads, and I'm like, okay, I'll put a tattoo of it on my forehead. And what it says before it talks about what we should do, it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart. Bro. This is what we need to be doing.
People are building their houses on sand right now.
Yeah.
And not on a rock.
Yes.
And that's why a storm's going to come and it's going to wreck their world.
So why do you guys have these core values everywhere? So we don't forget. Not because you can memorize something and eventually you're going to forget. That's right. So we have to have these positive values, these core biblical values constantly reminding us. I mean, we have the Israelites. We see how stupid they are. And they always freaking tormented me because I'm like, you guys are morons. You have God before you and you keep making the same mistakes, complaining all the time. You keep worshiping other gods and you keep saying stop worshiping other gods.
We're worshiping the god of sex right now in our culture.
Yeah. Holy crap. We should name that.
That's become an idol.
Really, it's the god of hedonism. It's the god of whatever makes you feel good, do it.
Yes,
that's right.
Whatever makes you feel good.
Whatever makes you feel good.
You do you. I'll
do
me.
You.
But the problem with that is when I do me and you do you, we end up hurting people because
not just ourselves.
Yeah, you don't just because when I go against what God wants, like it's not. I hate that too because people think, oh well, God is just giving me a bunch of rules and He's keeping me from doing what I want. And the reality is He's like, I've designed it to work a certain way, and if you deviate from that, it's actually going to cause more harm than good.
That's right.
And you're not actually going to get the fullness that I've given you the fullness if you'll just walk in it. But we're like, nope. And that's the ultimate sin, right? That's the first sin is both Satan getting cast out of heaven and Adam and Eve in the garden. It was them going, God, I appreciate you. And I love you, but I think that I can be God myself, and I'm gonna take it into my own hands and do it I'm gonna do me. God, you do you, I'm gonna do me, and it's the result.
Like we know better.
And
God.
And that's the fall, right? That's the fall. Is
what's crazy about that story? Because I recently was reading. I mean, we all know the story of Adam and Eve, you know, and something that God revealed to me was He said, Eve sinned in her heart before she even took a bite of that dang apple or whatever, the fruit. We don't even know what fruit it is. Right. But she said, yep, I know better.
She made it okay in here first.
And Jesus always tells us, like, when we sin in our hearts and our minds, we are actually sinning, like, outwardly as well. Like,
and that's what is so amazing what Jesus brought to life in the New Testament with the commandments was, thou shalt not murder, of course. But if you're murdering someone in your heart and your mind, that's still
your anger. Yeah,
that's still you're still there. You're still committing that. And that was his whole point, was to bring to life these 1,000-year-old commandments from Moses, right? And for everyone to like get a wake up call.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, all right, guys, I already gave you all this stuff, but I'm going to actually come to earth as a man, and we're going to reestablish this stuff. Let's get you guys back on track here.
Build a law.
And here we are, 2,000 years later, still going away from it, because that's what we do. We're the lost sheep. We're the lost sheep right
People
now.
don't like, I don't care who you are, people don't like feeling like something else is controlling them.
Yeah.
I want to know I have freedom. Like, that's the whole buck against government, right? Is I want to have the freedom to do what I want, when I want, and I don't want someone else telling me I can't do it.
Yep.
And that's true with our kids. You know, our kids want to be able to do whatever they want, and they get frustrated when we say, hey, you can't play video games all day. You actually need to go outside and play or whatever. You know, I don't like it if I come home and Cairistiona starts telling me all these things that I need to do or that I didn't get done. Like, that doesn't feel good to me. Yeah. She doesn't like it if I do it to her. It's just kind of, there's something in us that doesn't like to submit. I hate to submit. But what are we called to do is to submit to God, and that's a choice that we each have to make. Is, am I going to live my life and say, God, I want to do it your way and not my way, or am I going to buck it and say, I'm going to do whatever I want? And my grandpa used to always tell me, like on Judgment Day, you know, this world has come to a close and we're all on Judgment Day. He used to say, God's not going to have to say anything to anybody, because people are already going to know what they chose. Because God's not going to drag people into eternity with him kicking and screaming. And if someone says, I don't want you, God's going to say, okay, that's your choice. I've given you that freedom to choose to not follow me, and that's your choice. But it's like, if I've designed something to work a certain way, and then I put something in it, if that thing decides not to do what I've designed it to do, it's going to struggle. And that's the world that we see, is everybody that is bucking, you know, that submission to God is saying, I'm going to do it how I want to do. And it just results in chaos.
Yep.
Yeah, we are seeing, and I don't know what level we're at. I don't know how many more years.
How do we know?
We can't.
In Revelation, it says that we won't know.
We don't know.
When I was in middle school, actually, I don't even remember who I was talking to, but I think it was right after 9/11.
9/11.
And I was like, I was thinking, man, this world is falling apart. And this is, you know, however many years ago.
Right.
20 years ago.
It was 20. Yeah. It'll be 20 years ago.
22.
I remember and this was with an adult, and the adult told me, man, Jesus must be coming back soon, because I just can't imagine how this world could get any worse. And here we are 20 years later. I'm like, well, we've invented new ways of evil, haven't we? You know, and that's what we do.
But it drives me nuts when people think, like, oh, Jesus is coming back. Yes, we always need to be prepared for him always be ready that he may come back. But Scripture says, like a thief in the night, we don't know when he is coming. Like, drives me nuts. I'm like, okay, you think it's this? You think it's gonna be?
Yeah, Nostradamus didn't pick this one.
Yeah.
Okay, he's gonna come back when he's gonna come back. But it's our job to continue to live our lives, but in following the truth of the Word. Yeah. And the Word, the Word has so much to it and so many layers, and the more you read it, the more it changes you, changes your heart.
Yeah.
When I interpret the Bible now versus when I was in my 20s, it's a whole different thing. I can read the same.
Oh yes.
I can read the same thing and be like, "Whoa!"
I did not catch that last time.
Yes, and that's what happened every time, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it's supposed to do. It's a living word. It's a living word. It's not dead. It's not old. It's what your life should be grounded in. And you know, Frank Turek, who's a Christian apologist who I've had on our podcast multiple times, I'm going to have him again this summer.
He's always sorry.
He's
so apologetic.
Yes.
He's always sorry. That's not at all what it means. But that's what people think when they hear Christian.
Oh, that's what I thought when I was younger.
All it is somebody that defends the gospel.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. And we need more of those people in the world. But what he says is he goes and he speaks at universities and college campuses with a mix of people. Right?
Sure.
So you get Christians, you get agnostics, you get atheists, you get all kinds of people. Mm-hmm. And everybody really handles it, I think, very well, because everyone's there to like listen, learn, and share ideas, have a conversation. But he'll ask a lot of people who he knows, like proclaimed atheists. He'll say, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? Mm-hmm. And oftentimes the answer he gets is no.
Yeah. So
even if, listen, we believe in our hearts, because that's what faith is, right?
Yeah. We
believe in our hearts that the Bible is the Word of God, and that's what we follow in our lives, right?
Yeah,
and that's what grounds us. But there's a lot of people that don't. They need evidentiary, like I need him to stand in front of me and like all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But even if he did that, would they still follow? Yeah. And there's a lot of people that, as you said, they want to be their own God of their own life. Mm-hmm. So they would not. Mm-hmm. They would choose to go the other way. Mm-hmm. His own followers, who saw what he was, the miracles he was performing, still questioned him.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. They even in the Great Commission, some doubted. Is a line in the Great Commission. Mm-hmm. Do you recall where it said, at the beginning, where he said that Jesus was speaking, and then some doubted. Mm-hmm. So I mean, people with him in their presence, knowing what he was doing and capable of doing, still had doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it just shows you that's just always going to be part of
it's one of our flaws.
It is one of our human flaws. Mm-hmm. Is this doubt, this fear, this I want to do my own thing. I want to walk my own path. Yeah. I don't want to be under anybody's else's guidance or leadership. I want to blaze my own trail. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of people trying to blaze their own trail right now, and it's just disturbing, and it's like I said, it's a little bit frightening for me. So kind of along the same line here is what seems to be happening, and it's a very unusual thing. It's like simultaneously there's an attack on fathers and fatherhood with this increased emphasis on strong feminine, but are they really feminine like women? Right? Which is like, okay, so now that's like, it's almost like this mass emasculation of men, followed by this strong push for women to become more male-like, and almost like they don't need men.
Yeah.
So I'm just so confused by it, because last time I checked, it takes a man and a woman together to make a baby.
Yeah.
And that'll never change, regardless of how badly some people out there want to think that it does or proclaim that it does.
Because even with IVF, you need a male.
You can't get away from it, okay?
You can't just get away.
And it's scary to me to think that there's people out there trying to make that happen. That's what's even more frightening to me.
For sure.
But what are your guys, and I'm going to start with you, Cairistiona. Okay. What are your thoughts on this mass emasculation of men to basically not, kind of step away from their role as strong male figures in their family, and this, at the same time, strong push for women to become more domineering and more manly?
It's generation of freaking mess, and just us always trying to be in control. It used to be where men were very dominant over women, and women had to always they would say submit, and they really literally meant submit.
Yeah.
And so I think as Christians now in this generation, you realize that your wife's words have value. You're not no, woman, this is how it's going to be. You understand she brings value to you, and she makes you better. Without each other, you're not as powerful, great.
Yes.
We know that as a husband and wife, we bring different things to the table, and we bring different ideas and different balance.
Yes.
Even
right?
the way that we
Balance.
think.
The way that we think.
Yes.
And
It's
sometimes
different.
it's completely opposite. But then it grounds us when we can say, okay, I think you're right here and I think I'm right here. Maybe we can like come together, right? Well, here's this feminist movement that's been happening for the last decade or maybe like 5 years more so. And like the I don't know.
Demasculation.
Yeah, demasculation. Is that
right?
a word?
Well, it's emasculate.
Oh, emasculate.
So
Okay, okay.
But you
Emasculate, yeah.
It's and I
Dismanification.
You looked it up?
I actually have 2 dictionary definitions for you.
Okay.
So why don't we just define the word? Because
I love it. Thank you.
There might be people listening that are like, I've never heard that word before.
I haven't. Yeah.
And that's okay if you haven't. So from Oxford Dictionary,
Okay.
emasculated is an adjective. It says, of a man deprived of his male role or identity, insecure, emasculated men. So if you're going to use it in a sentence. A second meaning behind it is made weaker or less effective. An emasculated organization that is merely a shadow of its former self. Okay, now Merriam-Webster, for the same word, emasculated or emasculating, says to deprive of strength, vigor, or spirit, weaken.
Oh, spirit.
To deprive of virility or procreative power, castrate. And it is. And then
It's a castration?
Yes. Thirdly, to remove the, I'm not even going to say that, andronecium of a flower in the process of artificial cross-pollination. So we're not going to really use that
That's
one.
okay.
Now it all makes sense.
Gee whiz. But ultimately, I think we've gotten down to what that word means, and it really is. It's deprivation of strength and vigor.
Oh, right.
It's an attack on roles, right? And
It is an attack
It's
on
this
roles.
idea that if there's a difference, it means that one is better than the other.
That's correct.
And the reality is that one is not better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
They're equally valuable and important.
Vanilla or chocolate?
Oh, my
Vanilla.
gosh. I change every day.
Okay.
One time I'll really want chocolate.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
It's okay.
But don't we want both?
Yeah.
And don't we kind of need both?
Yeah.
Right? I agree 100%. It's a confusion of roles, and it's almost like the more they can confuse it,
Yeah.
the more they can try to make it so that there really is no role. It just is what it is, and
Yeah.
anyone can be or do whatever anyone wants.
Yeah.
And I just don't see it that way. What's the popular phrase behind every strong man is
A strong woman.
a strong woman. I would not be half the man I am today if it wasn't for my
We would
wife.
probably all be dead because we do something stupid.
Yes.
Because boys do
We
stupid
think things through more.
Yeah.
No.
And guys just do
No.
stuff.
Here's the thing. As a strong woman that totally could dominate him, I have had to choose to not dominate him and emasculate him. Because biblically, I feel like God asked me to do that. Not because he's telling me I have to do it, but for this marriage to actually work and for us to be healthy, I needed to step back. And it's made me a better person, not because it's told me that I can't be powerful. Oh my goodness, the opposite has happened. Like, he actually empowers me more to be the strong woman that I am and says, babe, you can do it. Whatever you want to do. And he actually is like, he gets at me when I don't like encourage myself, you know? Like, it's crazy that it's this extreme.
Yes.
It's extreme thinking. We don't need men because I can do it.
Yeah, and it's backfired to the point where women, it's hurting women.
It's hurting
And
women.
they're starting to realize it, I think, because now there's men that decided they wanted to become a woman that are now competing in women's sports and dominating. And just being like, see, I'm a woman and I just kicked all your butts. I'm the best swimmer in the world now.
Yeah.
Or I'm the best this in the world now. And,
Yeah.
and that's really not good. And it's
frustrating.
really silly.
It's so
To
silly.
be honest with you, it's silly, and I don't know. Again, I don't know where this stems from. I don't know why people are so receptive to it. I think there's a lot of people, the silent majority, that don't speak up about it because they don't want the pushback.
It's love equals acceptance, right? So I don't want to be seen as an unloving person. And so I'm going to accept whatever you want to do because I'm going to show you love in that way.
But that's not agape love.
But that's not a real definition of love.
No, love is not acceptance.
Yeah.
I hate that our definition of love is so ambiguous. It is so like used for everything. Oh my gosh, I love Coke. Oh my gosh, I love your hair. Oh my gosh, I'm in love with you. I love you.
Yeah.
Like,
actually, so this is a fun story. When we first...
Whoa.
Sorry, we're going back just a little bit, but when she first said she loved me,
I said, I feel like I'm falling in love with you.
And I said, thank you.
He said, thank you.
Bro.
I did. How far in were you? How many months?
Like 3 months.
That's soon.
But I've never told anybody that I was
You never told anyone that you were possibly falling.
Never even said I love you to anyone.
In high school, I heard everybody say, like they would date for a week and they're like, oh, I love my boyfriend. Oh, and I was like,
love you.
No, you don't. I'm like, you don't even know what that means. Like, I don't know what it means. And so for me, when she said it to me, I'm like,
it was cringy.
It wasn't cringy. I'm like, I'm not going to say it back to you just because that's what I'm supposed to do in this moment. I needed time to process, and I came back to you the next day.
I cried all bloody night. I'm like, that fool's going to break up with me. I moved too fast.
Yeah. But I came to her the next day and said, I feel the same way, you know?
And I slapped him in the chest.
But I didn't want to do it just because that's what you're supposed to do. But like you were saying, I think the Greeks have like 6 or 7 words for different words
they do.
Brotherly
for
love.
They do.
You have it?
No, I don't have it, but I know exactly what you're getting at. And there are different forms of love.
Yes.
There are.
And there's the love you would feel for your mother. There's the love you would feel for your sibling. There's the love you would feel for your coworker.
There's the love between God and his people.
There's a love for God. There's a love for
your food.
For
your spouse.
Yes.
You know, and there's only one of those that's really intimate, and that which would be the love for your spouse, right? The love for your child is far different. A far different type of emotion.
My son, he was like, Mom, why do we say I love you? He's like, you love Dad, right? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, but those 2 brothers just said that they love each other. Is that weird? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was a good question.
Because of all of the confusion, he's like, is that not okay?
Yeah.
Like, are they allowed to say I love you to each other?
And it not be weird. And I was like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
This is really
it's good for us to have... For him to ask those questions.
This is Enoch?
Yeah, Enoch, 7-year-old twin. Yeah, he's a thinker, man.
Wow, insightful.
Yeah, he is.
You know what what I like is there's, as I said earlier, some of the programming that's out there, especially for kids, is frustrating and disturbing. But there's also still some good stuff out there. There's that series Bluey. That's Australian. And
Bluey.
And we love Bluey. Oh, you hate Bluey? Well, but what it depicts...
It's a kid's show.
It's a kid's show, but what it depicts is a father, a mother, and 2 daughters, and their relationships,
They're interacting,
their friendships, and their relationships with their neighbors and with... extended family, and all the roles seem very like it has a really good. There's a lot of good takeaways, and I've never watched cartoons before. I don't know how many episodes you've seen, but my wife and I have seen a lot. There's a few more than a few that like get me emotional, like because it's a big, heavy topic.
Yeah.
And they do such a great job in like 6 minutes tackling these really big emotional concepts for
We're big
kids.
fans of Daniel Tiger.
Okay, I know who Daniel Tiger is.
That was a long time ago.
That was years ago. Yeah, I remember him.
I'm just saying, it was a mom and a dad, and they had eventually 2 kids as well. And they're just kind of going through life, like little kid life lessons, you know? Like, make sure to...
We used a lot of their songs.
Yeah. You know, flush the toilet.
But I agree with you. I love...
Wash your hands, you know?
How about lift the toilet seat when you go pee? Yeah. That's a big one at our house.
Flush and wash and you're on your way, you know?
That's right.
That's
I'm just saying, they're out there, that's all. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And they need to continue to get some attention and stuff because there is so much that I just in total disagreement with, and I'll just shake my head. The commercials sometimes I can't even I mute it or I'll and as I said, I don't watch network television anymore, but you still get the ads that come up when you watch, some of these other series on like
even if
Netflix
it's a family series or something.
And I'm like, that made me uncomfortable. I'm a 47-year-old man, and I could barely get through that advertisement for whatever that sexually, sexualized item was that you were just trying to sell me on right there. And my wife and I are just like, if that was on 10 years ago, you would have thought it was some type of Saturday Night Live sketch.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, you look back a few decades at stuff they were picking on and making fun of, and it's reality today.
It's so true.
Yes, it is 100% true.
Yeah.
And it's really mind-blowing. And so where do we go from here? I think we need to lovingly share our thoughts and minds with people like this. Like I said at the start, conversations that matter, that are meaningful, that you can have a conversation with somebody, even if you're in complete disagreement with what they're doing or them celebrating their sin in their life, but come at it the right way. You don't have to attack them.
Yeah.
You can still be like, listen, I care about you. It's why I want to talk to you about this. But it doesn't mean that I like this for you. I don't like that you have a drug addiction, or that you're an alcoholic, or that you are abusive, or that you are living out of wedlock, or whatever these things are. Like, and these are people all around us in our everyday life who struggle with these things. Everyone's struggling with stuff. I struggle with stuff, right? We all have it. But it's this demand to celebrate that is really just frustrated me.
That's the flip, right?
Yes.
It's no longer shameful, but it's celebrated. And that's the flip that you were talking about.
Yep.
So.
My word.
Yeah. Are there any? So there's a question that you had posed, Jared, prior to us having this conversation. Should the husband be the leader in the home, and what does that look like in our modern culture? As a husband, as a father, you see yourself as a leader of your family. What would you say to a young man listening right now, or somebody thinking about having a family, or a young father?
Again, that's it's that role that God has set up this system to work a certain way, and just because God has set up the husband to be the spiritual leader in the home does not mean that he is more important or more valuable than anybody else in the home. It just means that God has set him up to be the leader, and that's something that we've had to really work through in our own marriage, and that it's actually the thing that drove Cairistiona away from me was when I wasn't being the leader. And true. So her temperament naturally bucks, and my temperament naturally submits. And so we've really had to flip those roles in our marriage. And I have to step out, and I have to be okay with saying, hey, this is the boundary and this is where we need to stay. And I have to know she's probably going to try to buck that a little bit. But that's not necessarily, it's not good or bad. It's just reality. And so I would say, we need men to step up, right? We need young husbands to step up and say, hey, it doesn't mean the problem is that we think of a leader and we think of a domineering person that is like telling everybody what to do. And that's not at all what Jesus said, right? Jesus said, the husband in the home should love the wife as Christ loves the church, who gave up his life for the church. Right. And so I should be leading in such a way that I care more about Cairistiona and the kids than I care about myself. And if I lead in that way, then it's me actually loving her the way that God designed me to love her. Now, if I lead and I say, hey, I come home and I say, kids, bring me my slippers. Wife, where's my dinner? It's 5:30. Why is the house not clean? Like, that's not leading. That's slave driving. And we are not called to be slave drivers. We're called to be leaders. And a good leader gets the best out of the people that they're leading.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, and that's, I think it's very well said, and that's what went where the pendulum went too far is if you go back and look at in the 50s and 60s era, where it was the domineering husband who was potentially abusive and potentially had some addictions and things, and it was kind of like the crack in the whip, and the wife had to kind of be home, and the homemaker and the servant. But true leadership is servant leadership, just as Jesus did. He was the first one to wash the feet of his disciples, and they're like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "No, this is the least of us, right?" Or I'm trying to think. It's the way he said it. It was the least of us will become basically the greatest. The least of these, right. Or the least of these, right? Or and I'm trying to put it in a biblical context. But what he was basically saying was, first? Basically, that the last will be first, and so on. So it's the people that put everyone else in front of them that are service oriented, where you will go out of your way to first serve your wife and your children, which strengthens them and then also fills you as the leader, as the provider and the protector. Those things that men kind of innately have, like it's embedded and rooted in our DNA. Like we want to go out into the world, we want to provide, and we want to protect.
It's like anything, right? There is too much of a good thing, and so everything that we do has to be in check. And so we have to say, am I leading in a way that is honoring God? Am I leading in a way that is honoring my family? Or am I leading in a way that I'm just trying to get more for myself?
Ego.
Right. And so the same for a wife. Like the word submit freaks people out. Like, no, I shouldn't have to submit to anybody. I should be the God of my own world, and I shouldn't have to submit to a man. And you can talk more about that if you, I think, might want to. But this submission is not, it's been made by our culture to sound like such a terrible, icky thing. And even when I say it, it feels like, that doesn't sound good. But it's the roles we play. It's not, I've said this several times, it's not one is better than the other. It's just the way that it works. It's like the round hole needs a round peg to go into. You can't put the square peg into the round hole. It just doesn't fit.
That's correct.
But it works. It fits. And I would love to hear your thoughts on
and it's
submission.
a connotation thing too, right? Because submission or submit probably didn't have the same feelings attached to it if you go back a certain number of years that it does today, just as masculinity has now become equated with toxic masculinity. And it's like, you can't even say something's masculine right now without maybe somebody scoffing or giving a dirty look about it. And it's like, what are you talking about? Femininity and masculinity are both amazing things, right? And both are beautiful and good, okay? And I mean, when I think of a strong female, I think of my mom. And nobody was more of a, say, badass than my mom. Raising 3 boys and just being so tough. But also being the nurturer and the caretaker for her children, right? And I mean, she had a job, and but what was her main thing, man, was like raising 3 boys.
Was you guys.
Was us. Yeah. Not that, I can't wait, I get to go into the restaurant industry and like make tips and stuff like that. Like that's not what her great satisfaction, I think, was watching us grow and being a support system for us and being our cheerleader. And being that softness that we needed from my dad's hardness. Right? So my dad had a lot of downfalls, but he was a good provider. And he did do some things right. But she offset all the crap kind of that my dad was throwing our way. And she was just able to just filter it out and just be a big ball of like just love and support and all the things that 3 young men needed, and we turned out to be pretty good guys. And by my own assessment, of course. You know my brother. You met my brother, so
we love Bob.
But yeah, we love Bob. So do you have any final thoughts or feelings about that? About men, their role, the wife in this more submissive or submitting to, like. What we do know is when we're looking for a leader, oftentimes it is just one person. It's not like, because when you have 2 leaders, they kind of end up kind of banging heads. So somebody kind of has to give way just a little bit. when it comes to certain things. And there's certain things probably in your home that you lead. You take the lead role on that he kind of helps support you in.
Yeah.
And vice versa, right?
Like cooking dinner.
Right. Like, you're good at a bologna sandwich all day long, but like Cairistiana's going to kind of raise the bar a little bit.
She raises the bar a whole lot.
A whole lot, right? But any final words, Cairistiona, on like what I know we've talked about a lot today. But.
Yeah, I think it's really, really hard. And it kind of breaks my heart because I've had conversations like this with other women that are Christian. And they're like, but I want to work. And I want, like, my husband is like kind of more of the sissy. They wouldn't call him that, but if there was a definition, they're not as strong, as I am. And like this whole concept of like stay-at-home dads or whatever. Or like another friend said, she said, well, I work because our family can't even afford us to be home, like for me to be home anymore. But that wasn't the problem. That was just one of her excuses. But the whole thing that she was saying was like, it's okay for us women to be strong. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, but our roles are very confused. And I think the only way we can figure out our roles is to go to God and go to His Word and genuinely start having that active conversation of, God, where do I need to fix my heart? Where am I actually dominating my spouse so that they're ineffective for our home? And it's actually creating more problems because I have this expectation that He's going to provide, He's going to protect. And yet if He's not meeting those things, even if it's spiritual things that I need met in our family, it's going to create so much tension and arguments and actually having no respect for them anymore. Mm-hmm. So I think through the years, God has just taught us to like that humility, right? Is talking to Him, being right with Him, and figuring out like, what is my role here in the home? And not forcing Him to be a role, because that's never going to change them, but praying for your spouse and actually having these conversations are good too. Like, babe, I'm frustrated when I don't see you do this in the home, and my expectation, like as your role as my husband, is this. And we got to have these conversations. And I've always said if a marriage is going to work, both of them have to be working at it. It can't be one or the other.
That's right.
And it sucks that we're imperfect. And marriages, I had 3 of my siblings during COVID got divorced.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It still breaks my heart. And so, I mean, I'm a family of 10 kids, 3 of them, same year.
Wow.
And so it's just crazy. Like, we have to humble ourselves, but both people have to be humble. If one is not humble, this marriage isn't going to work.
That's right. Yeah. Humility, and that word you've brought up a lot over this last hour. It is missing from a lot of people, and it is the pride that gets in the way of that. It's thinking you have it all figured out, and
I can do this on my own.
I can do this on my own.
I don't need you.
I don't need guidance. I
don't need Jesus.
Yeah, and that doesn't work out quite well. It might work out okay for you short term for a few things that you want to do, but
there's going to be a realization.
There is, and that's what I think we're trying to do is to provide a little bit of that honesty, openness, truth, that long term this does not play out very well.
Oh, yeah.
And that the men and the women need to come together. And that's what marriage is all about. Yeah. A good, strong marriage is where the people are willing to communicate, come together.
I think I was just going to say, it's figuring out healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
Like for me to give Cairistiona and our family healthy boundaries, that then she has the freedom to buck, but at the same time, like by me providing that leadership and providing those boundaries, it actually ends up resulting in you trusting and respecting me because it shows that I care. Because otherwise I'm just like, you guys do whatever and I'll do whatever, and that's
it
not
makes
good
you
either.
not involved, right? You're like, I'm coming home and relax and not care about what's happening in this home. Mm-hmm. Yeah, takes the responsibility off of you.
Yeah, well, in the universe, I feel like the more you give, the more you do get back, the more you receive. and it's oftentimes about 10 times the amount. So I do feel like the more, as husbands, as leaders or fathers in the home, the more we can give to our wives, give that support, give that.
The more they flourish, right?
I think so too. We're setting them up to flourish, and then everybody's winning.
Yeah.
Right? Because now they're stronger and they're capable of pouring back into you, and it's a cyclical thing. So,
Absolutely.
and then the children, of course, no doubt feel that. And so I look at my kids sometimes, and I'm closing out right now, but I can look when I'm giving my wife a hug or something, or we're having a family hug, and you look at the smile on your kid's face.
They love the affection.
They love the affection and the closeness.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes them feel cared for, provided for, protected. All those things. That's what kids want.
That's what they
and
want.
if you can give that to them for their whole childhood until they're adults and going off into the world, then you've done your part.
Yeah.
And that's what I aspire to do. And time goes by quick.
Oh my gosh,
I mean, in
hate
10
it.
more years, we're all going to be sitting here twiddling our thumbs as our youngest are leaving. You know, so I thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah,
and,
it's awesome.
Having, a real heartfelt conversation that got a little bit, pretty crazy. I wasn't sure exactly the directions we would move in, but I think we stayed on point. And it's meaningful, and I'm sure we'll get some feedback from it for sure. Jared, always great to have you, my brother.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, always good. Thank you so much, listeners, for another episode here on the Strong by Design podcast. Thanks for finding us if you're new. Thanks for coming back if you're a return listener of the show. We thank you so much, and now's a good time to share this episode with somebody who you've maybe thought of as we discuss some of these pretty heated, pretty heavy, controversial topics in front of us today. So come back next week, as always, when we have another episode here. Every Wednesday, a new episode releases here on Strong by Design. We thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.